What's going on, everyone? In today's podcast interview, I'm extremely excited to bring you Amanda from the YouTube channel Resell Maven. Amanda is a full-time WhatNot bookseller and is also going to be a speaker at the Books and Beyond Resellers Conference happening this September 13th through 15th in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm extremely excited for her to be there and explore what is a platform that I know literally nothing about, but it's a great way to actually monetize books. We're going to get all into that today, but before we get into those questions, what's going on, Amanda?
Hey, not much. I'm beyond excited to be here, no pun intended, and I am definitely beyond excited to be at Books and Beyond this year. So very, very excited for all the new adventures, and book talking is my favorite thing to do. So I can talk about books all day long. So let's go.
Okay. First thing I like to do is set the stage for people, let them know if they can, see themselves in your shoes. So my first question to you is just, okay, well, how long have you actually been a bookseller? Like, how long have you been in the game? And specifically, like, how long have you been seeing success selling on WhatNot?
Yeah, for sure. So I started reselling back in 2020 when the pandemic was at its height. I dabbled in some books and found some traction there. And then, of course, dabbled into other areas as most resellers do, but eventually landed back on books as my full-time passion. As you can see, I am surrounded by them every day. But I started selling on WhatNot full-time about 2 years ago, immediately got addicted. It's an amazing platform, and I can't speak highly enough about it. So luckily, I've been able to fully make an entire business model out of that platform, where I do make about 99% of my income is straight from WhatNot live auction sales. So it's been a whirlwind, but it's been incredible.
That's awesome. Most people who are on my channel sell books on Amazon. Maybe some of them sell books on eBay as well. Could you just give us like a quick, 30-second elevator pitch for somebody? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people actually don't even know what WhatNot is. Could you just give us, a quick elevator pitch on how you would actually sell a book on WhatNot and what that looks like?
For sure. So quick elevator pitch. For one, WhatNot is a generally live auction platform, selling platform. However, there is stagnant auctions. You can do buy it nows and really a variety of different selling styles. But for the main part of it, it is a live auction platform. And the concept is you bring good quality inventory, you showcase it on a show, people buy it or they don't, and you set a fair price, and hopefully it sells for you. And then the beauty of WhatNot is if it doesn't, it just pops back up on a shelf or in the background of your show, and in another show maybe it'll sell then, and you just kind of rinse and repeat that. So I just bring good quality inventory every time I do a show. Some of it sells, some of it doesn't, and when it doesn't sell, I'll just sell it eventually. So it's kind of a nonstop machine of just constantly having new books and a combo of new and old items selling. Just like you would on Amazon, there might be items that you listed a year ago that are just now selling because it's seasonal or whatever it is. But then there's books that you're going to list yesterday that sell today. So it is just it's a great machine for sure.
Awesome. And would you mind, just to give people some perspective, you mentioned your full-time, 99% of your income comes from WhatNot. Like, what does that actually, look like in terms of, let's say, revenue numbers? So like, maybe if you could tell us from 2023 or maybe halfway, through 2024 now, like what sort of revenue numbers are you putting up? And then generally, if you could tell us like how much of, what percentage of that or how much of that's actually take home pay, because people are interested in potentially doing this as a side hustle or going full time. It's good to just let them know kind of what the reality of it is.
Yeah. So I actually didn't mention this, but I actually started on Amazon FBA. So I have some
Awesome.
FBA experience. Yeah. And I think I'll eventually dip my toe back into the waters. But the thing that's so beautiful about WhatNot that is the polar opposite of Amazon is the fee structure and the margins that you're making on these items. So for me, my general take home in a given year, pure profit outside of fees and taxes and all of that, is anywhere from like 50 to 55,000. That's just my base, just take home profit. So
Awesome.
it is definitely lucrative. I mean, I can definitely pay my bills. It's not like anything to write home about, but I'm doing well. And that's with, I'm working, but I'm working for myself. I'm building a business for myself. And so that number, as long as it grows every year, I'm very happy with that amount of money. But it's my margins that really keep me in business. So I source very low acquisition cost for sure. Most of my books are 25 and 50 cents. That's like a vast majority of my income cost because I source from the Goodwill bins. And then I'll sell those books anywhere from $1 to $15. It just kind of depends. But
Awesome.
they are going to be going for smaller sales prices than you might see on Amazon, but my profit is so much higher. So a
Yeah.
book that you might not even want to list because it's only, it's an $8 book, it's a $2 profit at the end of the day, if even that, I'm selling that same book for $5 and it's a $4 or $5 profit. It's an incredible margin. I'm easily between 80 and 90% margins. Anytime I've ever sat back and done it, I stopped doing it now because I'm just at that point, I'm like, okay, the lowest is like a 75%. So
Incredible.
definitely good ROI for sure. But
Awesome.
yeah, that's my general like take home pay, and then my overall like net sales in a year. I don't have a specific number, but I would say is
Okay.
probably close to the $60,000 to $70,000 like
Wow.
net sale. Again, it's
That's
ridiculous
incredible.
margins.
Yeah, that is ridiculous margin.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this platform because, yeah, a lot of these books, which we would consider duds on Amazon, only due to the fact of the Amazon fee structure. These are books that we would say you shouldn't sell on Amazon. They're essentially duds. They're unmonetizable. You have to donate them. But in this case, and we'll get into it later with some of the other questions I have, these are books that you can sell whatnot for, I know, $3, $4, $5, $6,
All
$7 or
day.
more, which are really, really popular books
Yep.
that people are willing to pay for. So we'll talk about that more later. But I also want to just kind of, you know, if you're willing, if you could talk a little bit about sort of, what is the family structure, or the home structure look like in your particular instance? Only because, again, people have to think about this from their own perspective. Like, can I actually do
Yep.
this? So would you mind just, as much as you want to provide, are you living with parents? Like, are you taking care of, anyone? Do you have a partner? Do you have pets? Just kind of generally like what your living situation is,
Yeah.
just so other people can see themselves, potentially doing this.
I think that's a great question, and it's something people need to take into account when they're listening to people. I actually did a video on my channel about that, which was just a small, like, little blurb of like, "Hey, get to know me a little," because I think it's
Yeah.
important when you're consuming content from somebody that you
Right.
kind of understand where they're coming from in their
Right.
position in life. So for me, I just turned 35 in June, so I'm mid-30s, and I
Nice.
have kind of gone through trajectory of the job market and had my kind of career that I had, which was a full-time service industry. I was a server and bartender for almost all of my life, and I
Nice.
loved it. And of course, when the pandemic happened, that all went away for a little
Yeah.
bit, and luckily fell into this in the meantime. However, with all of that, that's my kind of my background as far as just customer service, understanding that people want a value. So when they're coming out and spending money at a business, that whether you work for it or you own it, you need to give them a value. So I'm very customer service oriented and value oriented. So I have a partner. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 7 years.
Okay.
We're kind of long term, just relationship. We're not really into the whole marriage title, but we are basically married at this
Yeah,
point.
awesome.
He has two children from a previous marriage. So we have two boys, 7 and 9, which is just the funnest thing in the world. So we have partial custody of them. So I actually have children in my house about 2.5 days out of the week,
Oh, wow.
which
Okay.
is good for perspective. I'm allowed to be able to be in my office space and hustle and grind and work and do what I need to do without having to worry about picking my kids up from school certain days of the week, daycare, childcare, someone's sick, right? I have a family structure around my family unit where we all work together to raise our
Awesome.
children, right? So, luckily, I'm very supported in that area, and I am essentially a part-time parent, and kind of just get to be a full-time business owner. So yes, I have a little bit more flexibility than a lot of people may have, but
Okay.
it's allowed me, even if you do have responsibilities, there's time in the day. I always tell people that there's time in the day to squeeze it in. This isn't a business I feel like you have to be in 40 or even 50 or 60 hours a week. You can if you want
That's
to,
awesome to hear.
but the book business really, you just don't need to be in it that much. So,
Incredible
but yeah,
margins.
that's my background there.
Yeah, incredible margins, right? Being one of the reasons for that. Now, is this something that needs to be location dependent? People always ask, I live in a rural area, I live in a city. Like, obviously, if you're going live and you're on the internet, it doesn't really matter where you're at as long as you have internet connection. But in
Yep.
terms of like, actually picking up and acquiring the inventory, does it actually matter? Are there advantages to living in some places than others? And if you could just give us a little bit of background about like where you're located relative to like being in a town, a large city, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's a huge component of my success in my business because of where I'm located. And I do think that it is dependent. I think it's a two-parter. For one, you want the stuff available around you when you're getting into reselling. You need to make sure that the items that you want to resell are around you. I think that's
Right.
step number one in any reselling
Right.
business. You can't say you want to sell shoes and there's no shoes at a reasonable cost near you or
Correct.
quality product, right?
Exactly.
So I definitely got into it because of where I live. So I live in a what we call our area is the seven cities because there are
Okay.
seven pretty big functioning cities that make up our whole area. So I live in Virginia and I
Okay.
live in an area called Hampton Roads. And so if anyone's familiar with like Virginia Beach or Norfolk, like the Norfolk Naval Station, which is like the largest naval station in the world, we have multiple military bases, we have theme parks, we have Colonial Williamsburg. Who hasn't heard of Williamsburg? That's
Right.
basically where I live. So we live
Okay.
in an area where there are a thrift store. You can throw a rock and you're going to hit a thrift store of some sort.
Okay.
And so sourcing is extremely easy because we are a huge military area. There's a
Right.
lot of people coming and going. And so there's always an influx of products. And there's a lot of people that live here. So we live where the most populated city is in our state. So, yes, I
Awesome.
think that is very important to remember that I am able to do so much bulk just simply because of what I have access to in my area. However, you know this, there is online arbitrage. There is an
Yeah.
opportunity always to
Mhm.
find ways to make this business work. So if you do live in the rural area and you're like, I have one thrift store and they never put anything out, there's no way. It is still possible. It's not going to be necessarily as easy, but I think you can put
Right.
systems in place to make it work. And that's actually what I'm kind of slowly working my way into, which is getting the books delivered to my door as opposed to having to go get the
Oh,
books. You know what I
that's
mean?
awesome.
So anyone can do it. And I'm doing
Right.
it later in my business, but you can do it pretty early on still. It's risky, but it is
Yeah.
possible.
Right. And my next question is actually about storage. If we look at your background, obviously you've got multiple shelves up behind you. You've got
Yeah.
appears to be a whole bunch of different types of books. What sort of storage is needed? Are you actually going to need a separate room in your house? Are you gonna need a shed in the back, in your property? Is it a limitation to scaling? Is it like required that you're going to need quite a bit of space?
I think it'll depend on the model you want to do. So if you want to
Okay.
do bulk, yes, you're going to need something, and I
Okay.
would say a small room in your house is a great place to start. I don't
Okay.
super recommend putting books out in sheds
Okay.
or garages that are climate controlled. It is
Okay.
possible if you live in a very mild climate area where there's no real
Yeah.
severe winter and summer and rain and stuff like that. But climate controlled, so inside your house would be nice. Now, I have an office space, so I'm not actually
Awesome.
in my house. So I have a
Oh.
whole office space. I have it's four different rooms basically that I have to utilize within
Wow.
my business. But this is my main room. This one
Okay.
room is just wall to wall bookshelves all around. So I would say that is probably the main thing you need is at least a bookshelf. And please
Okay.
don't worry about buying these $100 shelves that are
Yeah.
beautiful and aesthetic, but they're not
Yeah.
necessary. Go to Facebook Marketplace, type bookshelf. You will find free 10,
Oh, great.
15, $20 bookshelves. They're not beautiful, but they hold books, and that's all you need. So grab a couple cheap bookshelves. You can get like two or three that are, maybe tall or mid-size that fit your space and put your books on a shelf. But yeah, at least enough space for a small shelf and work on that. If you're not doing a bulk model, you don't need as much space
Right.
because your books are higher profit. And so you're not worried about needing as many. I do a lot of bundling. So I need a lot of books to put into bundles where you might say,
That's
no, this is one book I can sell for $15 and you
awesome.
repeat that process. So kind of just depends bulk, not bulk, and then a bookshelf. Please just get yourself a bookshelf sooner than later. It'll help you out so much.
Awesome. Can you be successful without necessarily having a following on Whatnot? Because I think one thing that might actually prevent people from joining is this like, okay, I see other Whatnot sellers on the marketplace who are live streaming. It looks like they have thousands of followers. Is it necessary to have a large following when you come into this, or is it something that you can build along the way and still be successful without having a huge audience?
Yeah, both. Both and neither at the same
Okay.
time. If you have a following, great. That's going to be good. If you have people who loyally like just who you are and they're invested in who you are and they want to support you in whatever you do, that's going to, of course, be wonderful to have a handful of people in a show guaranteed that are there to support you. However, they may not even be there to buy. And I would rather have buyers in my show than just people
Right.
who are supporting me. So I'm going to
Right.
always say, just get on the app and just organically gain your following. I do
Okay.
not think you can, everyone starts with 0 followers. Everyone
Absolutely.
starts any platform with 0 followers. So, I didn't have a YouTube when I got started, and I will always say I was a little lucky because I got in very, very early. I started about 2 years ago when the book category wasn't even a category. It was like
Wow.
under 2 subcategories. I didn't even know it existed for the first like 3 months I was even on the platform.
Okay.
However, when I got on, I was one of the first few, but I have built up a following not because I was there early and because now I just have this following. I built up a following because I provided good quality inventory, a good
Right.
personality, fair pricing, good customer service, just overall good vibes and a good time. So I think that as I have a lot of videos, and this is my whole spiel I like to tell people is it's the more attributes you can bring to a show that are positive, the more people are going to start hitting that follow button and they're going to want to buy from you because you're showing consistency. So don't get down and out because you have no followers and you're starting a show and there's no one in your show. If you do the things that you need to do on any platform,
Yeah.
the basics, right? You're going to have success. And even if it's small at first, it'll compound and grow over time. So
Yeah.
you're going to start with 0, just like we all did. So
You
just
mentioned
do it.
consistency. I'm curious, how often do you actually have live shows? Is it like every Monday, every Tuesday, every Monday, Wednesday, every Thursday, Friday? So, what does your sort of schedule look like? And then, how important is that consistency and, for how long in order to actually start seeing some of that success?
If you want to be making whatnot a part of your income, like an actual part of your portfolio, then you need to be consistent, even if it is once a month, right? If you can be consistent every 2 weeks, that's great. If you can be consistent every week, that works. And it's something as simple as saying, okay, one day a week is my day, and I can go live
Right.
anytime in that day. But everyone who like wants to see me or when I'm talking about my future shows, they know it's this day of the week. Or you
Right.
say, I don't know what day I'm going to be on. My life is really crazy, but if I'm ever live, it's at 6 p.m. every single
Okay.
time, right? And so
Okay.
if someone wants to see if you're on around 6 p.m., they'll pop on and see, right? Some form of consistency. Now, I do 4 shows a week. So I'm live
Okay.
on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays every week. And I
Okay.
always say that Tuesdays and Saturdays are my non-negotiables. I actually canceled my show this Tuesday for unforeseen reasons, and it's probably only the second or third time in
Wow.
2 years that I've canceled a
Okay.
Tuesday show. So that's a
Right.
very weird and random thing to do, but I do Tuesdays and Saturdays always, and then Wednesdays and Fridays are just kind of random, whatever I feel like doing. So 4 times a week, yeah, and always 4 p.m. So the only time I'm not on at 4 p.m. is if I have a specialty show. For example, tonight I have a show at
Gotcha.
2:30, sorry, which I can move back if we end up running over, so no
Yeah.
pressure on that. But,
Okay.
I have a random show scheduled, other than that, it's 4 PM. So, yeah, consistency, I can tell my followers, every Tuesday, every Saturday, 4 PM, I'm here, and if you're here, we can hang out, you know?
Huge. That's awesome. And you mentioned specialty show. I think that's interesting, right? Can you talk a little bit about any particular show? Is it just like, oh, today's selection's all horror books, today's selection is children's books. Like, how nuanced is it where, like, you have a specific type of show, specialty show versus, actually having to take pictures of, like, and this would be another question I have later on, like, are you necessarily needing to take a picture of every single picture you're gonna have? Or is it more like, hey, everyone out there, I'm just going to be selling random horror books today. Just like show up.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. It brings up a really good point, which is something I think people need to keep in mind is when I say a specialty show, I actually mean something that's typically not books.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I don't
Interesting.
think, personally, from my experience and what I've seen on the platform, that many specialty book shows do well. So I want to blame myself a little bit that I've created a culture of like, you can get books for all ages and all genres every show.
Right.
So when I first started, it was Tuesdays were children's books and then Saturdays were for everybody. But on
Okay.
Tuesdays, I only did kids' books because that's what I originally specialized in was children's
Right.
books. I started noticing on Tuesdays, I'd get a lot of people who are like, "Well, what about the adult books? And do you?" And I
Yeah.
just was like, I'm like eliminating a whole market here. And so
Gotcha.
I had played around with doing picture book shows. So it was just picture books, very hit or miss. Okay, we're going to
Mhm.
do just adult chapter today. Very hit or it was just not Great.
Gotcha.
So I quickly realized they want everything. And that is what my bundles look like. Very few bundles have just one type of book in it. Most of my bundles
Okay.
have 2 kids' books, a young adult book, and 3 adult
Interesting.
books, and then a cookbook. I mean, they
Oh,
have
wow.
variety. So I can't just do a cookbook show because I'm eliminating so much of my market by saying, well, if you're not interested in cookbooks, like, oh,
Interesting.
well, I'll be on tomorrow.
Okay.
So I think that's something I actually don't talk much about, but is actually a very, very good point for people getting into it. I see a lot of new people thinking, well, I'm just going to go on. And that's a big one is I'm going to do my cookbooks. And it's like,
Right.
if you are a cookbook seller, do just cookbooks. But if you have
Right.
all kinds of books, you need to tell people what you have.
Awesome.
So, I know that was part of your question, but you were talking about specialty shows. My specialty shows are like plush, stuffed animals,
Whoa. Okay.
toys, educational material. So tonight is random toys and educational material and stuffed
Awesome.
animals, board games, puzzles, just things that are like random stuff that I still like to pick up. Can't help but be a kid a little bit and play with toys from time to time. So those are my specialty shows. I do a plush show usually once a month, and it's a huge plush blowout. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. But books, yeah. So books are every genre, every age range, always because it is really polarizing to people to be like, sorry, I have kids' books, but we're not doing that tonight. Like, why? So.
Let's talk a little bit about where you're sourcing your inventory. I know you had referenced that you're in an area where you've got all, multiple cities around you. You're in a very populated area. You've got, so many thrift stores in your area. So in terms of sourcing inventory, can you talk to us a little about, are there specific thrift stores that you're always targeting? Is it you've worked out special deals with certain thrift stores? Is it you're just literally popping in and you're deciding to buy a book? And then also, what is your sort of routine in terms of like, are you going out every single day sourcing? You're hitting it only on Mondays and Thursdays, for example. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Mhm. As far as where I source, mostly it's Goodwill. I have a
Okay.
very strong love-hate relationship with that company, and
Okay.
they are my lifeline, but I also, like, hate so much of what they stand for, but it's
Yeah.
okay, we digress. So Goodwill really is a big one. I have in about an hour span from me, I actually have 3 outlets, but I
Oh,
only go
cool.
to 1. So that's context for how big of a environment we have,
Right.
right, around us. I mean, we have 3 outlet locations within, like, an hour, hour and 15 minutes, which is wild.
Right.
But I actually only go to 1 mostly, and that is my main, sourcing. So I do Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. I hit up the
Okay.
bins in the morning when they open, sort through the books. I dig through the entire bin. I wanna touch all of the books. And I do that for about an hour to an hour and a half. And then I call it and I'm done and I'm on my way. And I actually don't usually hit any other thrift stores those days. I don't really have any
Wow.
real need to, though that's my schedule. And then what I'll do on the days that I am flex days, like sometimes Thursdays, since I don't do a show on Thursdays, that's kind of my flex day. I might drive the hour down to one of the other outlets and hit up
Okay.
that one, scoop up some books there. That's usually mid-afternoon, so they've already been picked through, but I can still get some good stuff. And then down there is where I actually do a lot of my individual cherry picking stores. There are about
Cool. Okay.
3, 4, 5 Goodwills, Salvation Armies, and disabled American veteran thrift stores that are kind of
Okay.
where I can go through and pick because I'm going down once or twice, a month. There's
Okay.
new inventory always. It's not hitting that store every day and scanning
Right.
shelves that are just, there's nothing new there. So I'm able to go do that about twice a month.
Right.
So
And
it's
so
really just the 4 days a week, and that's kind of it for sourcing, and it's Goodwill mostly.
it doesn't sound like a lot. You said, I think, an hour to hour and a half each day. So you're talking about like 4
Maybe.
to 6
Yeah.
hours of sourcing, and you're able to make essentially like the almost the average household income in the United States.
Yeah.
That household income, and you're just one person. That's incredible. When you are sourcing, I know that you particularly sell fiction books, which is so
Mhm.
interesting because on Amazon, everyone's like, "Don't sell fiction books." There's
I
no
know.
fiction books only because they're mass market, they're very, very popular, and so therefore the price, they're just printed like crazy, and the prices are much
Yeah.
lower. So, are you only ever looking for fiction books, or are you actually looking for other books? You're looking for textbooks, rare books, like vintage, like is that the only thing you're looking for, really?
No, not at all. I have a broad variety. So I will tell you my nonfiction categories are going to be your kids' books, of course.
Okay.
They're fiction, but they're
Okay.
kids' books. They're not adult
His books, yeah,
fiction. So they're
right,
still fiction.
yeah,
But like board books, things like that are something I really look for. And then nonfiction and educational. So a lot of like your National Geographic.
Oh,
magic
cool.
school bus,
Nice.
niche topics that are popular, like dinosaurs are really popular. So I'm going to pick up dinosaur related books. And then my educational are my workbooks. So your, those thick brain quest workbooks, your, get ready for preschool and it's, match the color balloon to the color you
Right.
see it. Very much so, those
Mhm.
workbooks, those fly off of the shelves. And then I guess everything else technically does fall under the fiction category. Oh, cookbooks and self
Okay.
help, poetry,
Okay.
so those would be my big like nonfiction. And then I do pick up biographies if they're of
Oh, cool.
somebody of relevance and importance.
Okay.
So I'll pick up biographies and then anything that's like spiritual, witchy, occult style stuff, like learning about what your dreams mean or how to palm read. People love that kind of stuff. That's really, really popular. So yeah, I would say that's my main nonfiction categories. So I
Okay.
sell a little bit of everything, but
Okay.
95% is fiction for
Makes
sure.
sense. Um, what's so fascinating to me is that it seems like you're mentioning just based upon experience and just based upon common sense what would sell well. I'm an online book arbitrage seller. I only reference data to determine if I'm going to buy a book. I could care less about if the book's a children's book, if it's a book about witches, if it's a book about education. For me, it's all in the data. So are you actually
Mhm.
using any data to support what you're buying? Because in the Amazon space, as you know, if you sold books on Amazon, people use like scanning apps like Scout IQ or Scally, where it's like it turns red or turns green, buy this or
Yeah.
don't buy it. But it doesn't seem to be like you're using any data. So are you using actually any data, or are you just simply going off common sense and experience?
It sounds a little conceited to say, but I have a red green trigger system up here in my head. It's red or green when I'm looking at it. I can feel, sometimes it's by the feel. It'll be in a pile and I'm digging it out. I can feel, I'm like, oh, that. And I look and it's like, yeah, that's exactly a book I want. It really is through experience. I think that one of the hardest things about getting into reselling in general is you are going to have that period of time when you have crap, right? You have junk. You have the stuff that you bought, it never sold, you listed it, you're committed to it now, and you just leave it there in your inventory system for 2 years before you finally realize, okay, nobody wants that. And so it's just that unfortunate learning curve. And I've been doing it, for about 4 years overall with touching and playing with the books and feeling them and learning what sells. So for me, my data is how many times have I had to pull that book or a book like that off of my shelf because it didn't sell and it's been sitting there for 2 months and nobody has wanted it? And how many times have I had to do it? If I have to do it even once for most books, I'll never pick it up again. And then there's the other books that I can't even ever put them on my shelf because they will never make it past the live show. They don't make it
Gotcha.
to the leftover new inventory. It's just always sold immediately. So that's really what it is. It's getting out there and touching enough books and
Right.
learning, what does and doesn't sell. Like just for a quick example, my chapter books, and if you can see them over here, kids
Yep.
chapter books. So those are your scholastics, your first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade age, elementary school book
Right.
fair style chapter books that we all are
Okay.
very familiar with. Billions of those books exist, and maybe 100,000 of them will ever actually sell in my store. So while I don't have Keepa or any sort of software that tells me how many times this book has sold, because
Correct.
over the course of whatnot, right? I just know that I do not pick up that book anymore because I've picked it up before and it doesn't sell. Or I go, oh my gosh, I've never sold this book, but this is exactly the type of book that I sell often when I sell this
Right.
very low selling category. So it's
Very cool.
just getting a baseline and not allowing yourself to buy the books that are like you want it because it's a good book and it's in good condition, but it's probably not going to sell. So I hate
Awesome.
to say it, but that's what it takes.
Everything's a learning curve, learning from your mistakes. We'll go ahead and put also Amanda's like whatnot. I'm sure it's like I'm not sure if it's called a storefront or a tag or essentially a way that they can find you. And a pro tip for everyone out there is if you want to know what Amanda's selling and what is actually selling, just probably join your live show and just see what's selling. Because I'm assuming it will say somewhere on the live show, because I've actually never participated in one,
Yep.
but I'm assuming it'll say like, oh, you actually sold this item. And so you could actually have real evidence that, okay, Amanda was able to sell this item.
Yeah. Well,
Good
for
point.
one, I need you to get on Whatnot, not just for yourself, because it's a
Right.
great place to be, but it's so much fun. But yes, there's a sold tab. So you can go into anyone's show and that is it. It's just the research. You go in and I do it all the time. These people are, for one, most people are not my competition because I actually have a very different business model than most people run because I
Okay.
do bulk and bundles. So
Yeah.
I don't, put too much weight into their solds, but I do like to look and go, wow, I sell that book every day for $4 and they're selling it for 7. And it just reminds me that I am below the market, which is what I want to be because I'm doing bulk and bundles, but it is a book that does sell for that much. So if I wanted to, I could sell it
Yeah.
for that much. So yep, you're just learning what sells and how much it sells for.
Yep. Incredible that you don't necessarily even need to use a scanning app or key, but it's just based upon experience, learning from the mistakes and learning from your successes more importantly as well.
Yeah.
Now, next question people are going to ask is, well, how do you actually determine the price of any particular book or bundle? Is it just completely arbitrary? Is it, again, I'm assuming just from experience, but talk a little bit about how does this book end up being $3 and this book end up being $7?
hmm Again, part of it is keeping up with the current state of books. Get on Book Talk, get on Bookstagram, go and look at what people are hyped up about. Stay in tune with, what authors are up and coming. So if you hear someone talking about a certain author, do some research. What kind of books do they publish? Do they have something new coming out? Why might people be so excited about that author? And so you're really just learning what the market wants because I can price a book at whatever I want to price it at. But if no one in my market wants to buy it, it doesn't matter
Absolutely.
if I think it's worth that much. So for me, again, feel like I'm a little bit of an exception. And I'd just like to reiterate that because I do bulk. And so I make the money I make and I work very hard to make that money. Trust me, the shipping end of bundles is the hardest part of the entire business. It's the shipping side that takes the most time, I feel like. But I price my books roughly between $1 and $7.
Okay.
$7 and $8 is like my cap. Whereas
Okay.
there's so many people who start at $7. So
Gotcha.
$7 to $15 is very normal for them. So for
Interesting.
me, that's just how my pricing structure goes. So what I use to determine is if it is a popular, highly requested, harder to come by book, it's going to be maybe $5 or $6. If it's a
Okay.
book that's pretty run of the mill, I see it often enough, but it still has demand, maybe $4. And if
Okay.
it's a popular-ish book, I I see it all the time, like The Girl on the Train. It was a movie,
Mhm.
it was a book, they republished it. I mean, you find that book every day, all day if you wanted to. So that's a
Okay.
$3 book just
Yeah.
because it's cheaper than you're going to get it anywhere online, but I don't need to price it up because I'm going to get it tomorrow again and it'll be available again. So unless it's really rare and hard to come by, there's an author right now, her name's Abby Jimenez, and she's the up and coming hot author of
Okay.
the year right now. And so I'll find a book from her, and that book might be anywhere from $8 to $10 sometimes. I found a book that she just published 2 months ago in the bins, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Wild.
$10 book because you
Yeah.
can't get it for less than $14 or $15. So I'm going to price it at that. So it's just about being fair and giving people the
Right.
opportunity to grab a deal on Whatnot. It's not eBay, it's not Amazon. You're not looking for a specific price point because that's what it sells for. I'm looking to give people value in a deal. So that's why I
I
price
think
my books the way I price them.
I think it's important to note also when we're talking about you selling a book for $3, that's also not including shipping, right? So it would be what, $3 plus media mail shipping, I'm assuming. Is that
Mhm.
correct? Okay.
Yep.
So that's
And it's a
important.
bundles they bundle the weights for shipping on Whatnot. So you're not
Okay.
paying just the base price for every single time you make a purchase. It's
Okay.
all by your total weight in your order.
Okay. That sounds good. Now, in terms of letting people know about an upcoming show and about what is available to purchase, is it, hey, I've got 100 books. I need to take a picture of all 100 books. I need to write titles of all 100 books. Or, as I mentioned, is it, hey, today we're going to be selling, like you mentioned, I guess, a wide variety of books, and you have no idea
Mhm.
literally what I'm going to be selling. You just show up and have fun.
Yeah, that's up to your preference. Some people are really ingrained in listing, and some people who are very much so the opposite of me love listing and don't mind it. I hate listing. So I have done everything in my power to make my show a not have to list anything show.
Incredible. That's
So
awesome.
basically, you have two options. You can go in and take a picture of every single book, write your title, put your price in, and put it as a listing in your auction. And you can run those books individually, whether you just go through your auction tab as you're live or somebody pops into your show and says, hey, can you run that book that I see pictured in your auction? And that's a great way to do it too. But that will be the opposite of bundling. So when you start on Whatnot, you're with books, with really anything, you need to determine, are you a bundler or are you an individual seller? So if you are an individual seller, you have to individually list those items. If
Gotcha.
you are
Okay.
a bundler, you do what I do, which is I have preset items in my store that are by the weight. So with books, everything's by ounces and pounds. So you want it to be the correct weight. I'm not going to sell a book that only weighs 4 ounces for a pound because that would be unfair for shipping for the buyer.
Right.
So I have it listed by ounceage and then by pounds, 1 to 2 pounds, 2 to 3 pounds, so on and so forth. And when I need to run a book, I just pin up that listing that has a quantity of 1,000. There's just it's an unlimited listing. And I show the book on the camera that everyone's like, run that book, run that book. It looks great. I show the book and I pin it up. Maybe it's a 1.2 pound book. I put 1 to 2 pounds. I start the auction at whatever price I want to start it at, which I can fluctuate. Maybe I want to run this book at a $4 start. Maybe I do want to run it at a $7 start, whatever it is. I run it. And then when it sells, I write on a Post-it note, 1 to 2 pounds. And I put like a slash and then whatever number auction that was. So if it's the first auction, I put a 1. If it's the 10th auction, I put a 10. I put the little sticky note on it and I put it to the side. So I have an inventory system without having to list those items. And then on the inverse, if it doesn't go on auction when I show the book and somebody goes, oh, can I have that book? And they're the only one, I will just put it into a pile for them and keep adding books into their pile until they're ready. And then I take that whole pile, I take a picture of it, I get a weight, and I list it in the buy it now. And I say, this is, Sarah's pile. It was 6 pounds and it costs $22. And then Sarah can just go in and buy her bundle. So no,
That's
I don't
awesome.
like
The auction part of it, is it like there has to be certain incremental increases? So let's say you start a book at $3. Is it like someone could bid anything, they can bid $3.10, or how does the
Nope.
process of doing
Always
that work?
even dollars. No cents. There's no like 50
Wow.
cents or anything like that.
Okay.
So the
3 or
way
4,
it kind of
45.
works, it's $1 every single time. And then I think once it hits like maybe $20 or so, it might start going up by like $2 or $3. I don't 100% know, but I know once it hits a certain threshold, it's just like, okay, clearly you guys are willing to pay for this. And a matter of it being $32 or $35 isn't that big of a deal. So I think it starts going up by like $2 or $3 increments. And if you get really high, I think over like $50 or $100, it might start going up by $5 increments. I'm not sure, but I know there's a system to that. But no cents, it's only even dollars.
Makes it nice and easy. Can you talk a little bit about the fee structure for a book that, let's say, you sell for $3 versus a bundle that you sell for $20? Is the fee structure a percentage of the sale? And how I know you mentioned massive margins, which is why books are amazing, but talk a little bit about that fee structure.
Yeah, so the fee structure is the same regardless of how you sell. There's only one thing that can be a little bit different, which is why I do bundles, and I'll explain that. So the general fee structure of WhatNot is it's 8% across the board on your total value item. So if you sell a $10 item, you're paying 8% of that $10. And then it's 2.9% processing fee, which is very standard across a lot of platforms. That's actually how most fee structures are. So it's 2.9 processing, which is going to be on the entire total. So it's the price of the item, the tax, and the shipping.
Okay.
So you are paying 2.9% on the shipping cost of an item. So if you specialize in very heavy items, you are going to be having a little bit of a higher fee. And it also matters on the tax of the state that the buyer's located in. So it's 2.9% of the tax of their state. So it may be different in different states. Yeah. So if you sell in Delaware, I don't think Delaware has sales tax. So they may not have a tax that you're being, put a fee on. And then the part that I think a lot of people miss, this is the one I always like to highlight, is the 30 cent per transaction fee. So it's 10.9% for your main general fees, and then 30 cents for every single individual sale that you make. This is the example I think blows a lot of people's mind. And I said this in one of my last videos because I think people need to know it. Imagine that you sold 100 items at the end of the day. You sold 100 individual book auctions. You listed all your items and you ran them all individually, and you sold all 100 items. You right off the bat are paying $30 in fees.
Right.
Not including your 10.9%, just $30 because it's 30 cents per transaction. And that adds up really quickly. Now, let's say I sold those same 100 books, but I sold them to 10 buyers. So I had 10 buyers who each had 10 books in their pile. Let's just say to make the math easy, right? I'm only paying $3.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah. So
that's why
very
we do
clever way,
bundles.
right? That's why bundling is huge. And then just to play devil's advocate on the bundling, the shipping would be more expensive. So the fee, the 2.9% fee would be higher. But in any case, it's it clearly makes sense that bundling will save you money, right? Because it's only 30 cents per transaction, which is awesome. Now, this is what I'm really interested in. Do you think there's an arbitrage opportunity for someone like myself to join your show, buy some of the books that you're selling? Because I do utilize Keepa and understand what the historical value or intrinsic value of a book is, and buy it from you for 7 and sell for 35 on Amazon. Is that possible?
Like 10,000% possible.
Okay.
Like,
yeah,
that's what WhatNot started as. It was a place for collectors to create their own market for the goods that they wanted, your trading cards, your Funkos, things like that. Then when everyone else came into it, it was about what people like to consider is more of like a wholesale, like a liquidation platform, which it is not as much anymore. However,
right.
people do use it for that. And I think that's a
Mhm.
great like if you do storage units or something like that and you sell only coins and gold and you do storage units, why not take your stuff you find in a storage unit and use WhatNot to get rid of all of it on liquidation? That's a great way to do it. But not only do very successful sellers in the book category and all the categories across WhatNot, but I want to stay book related. Not only do successful sellers in the book category arbitrage all the time on WhatNot. Like I have one of my closest friends is a seller and he buys books from everybody because he is just like the sweetest person that ever has existed in this planet. And he supports everybody by buying books from them, but then he will turn around and sell them on his show. Not always for a profit, but for the most part, he just prices his books higher. So he'll get a stack of books for me, for like $20, and maybe it's got 5 books in it, but he's going to sell every one of those books for $8. So he's not making the highest margins, but after shipping and everything and all the fees and stuff, he's got a little bit going on. He does, of course, his own sourcing, but that's my point, is that even just from WhatNot to WhatNot, you can do it. And this is a friend of mine. So it's not like, I'm not pricing something up or lower. It's just that's my price. And he's like, cool, I can support you and I can still bring a great quality product. So that's WhatNot to WhatNot, but WhatNot to Amazon, 1,000% without a doubt. There's so many books I sell and people will tell me my own comps. They'll be like, that book sells for $30. And I'm like, I know, I don't want to list it anywhere. That's why you're getting it for $6. Congratulations.
There you go. People from my channel, one way that you can support Amanda, I believe, is if they sign up with WhatNot through your link. I think they get like $10 for free, right? So you can go in there. $15. You can go get.
Yeah, and they can spend it with anybody. It doesn't have to be just in my store. You can spend it with anybody on WhatNot. $15 free. Yep.
But go into her store, buy something that on Keepa says it sells for $25, $30. She's selling it for $5, and there you go. You take in money you got for free, and essentially we're able to buy a product that you can sell on Amazon, make some money on. Plus, you also support Amanda. And by the way, I know we mentioned this in the beginning, but remember, Amanda has a YouTube channel. Resell Maven is her name. And you've been growing quite fast. And you have like 800 subscribers now, which is incredible.
Yeah.
But
I didn't check this morning, but I think I just crossed 800. So I don't know. I think I did. But that's crazy.
Subscribe. Hopefully we can get you to 1,000 with this video. That'd be awesome. But
that would be amazing.
We're gonna play a game. This game is called Pick or Pass. I have a bunch of books here. And I'm gonna say that each of these books is $1, and I just want you to tell me a little bit about would you pick it or would you pass it, and then a little bit about what you potentially would list it for if you do decide buying it. So we're gonna start off with the first one here. Rich Dad Poor Dad. Pass. Okay. Pass. Straight up pass. Okay. Next one. We're gonna go with Easter Bunny board book.
If it works and is overall clean, I'd pick.
Can you hear it? I'm not sure if you can.
Yeah.
If it works. It's clean.
I'd pick it.
You pick it for $1. Yeah. You'd pick it for $1.
For 50 cents, but for $1, yeah. If it was Easter, yes.
Okay.
If it was Easter. Seasonal.
Ghost Rider, Trail of Tears. Let's look at this.
Good graphic.
Yeah.
I'd pick it.
You pick it for $1?
Yeah.
What would something like this go for in the store?
So crazy. I normally would get that for 25 cents, but I would buy it for $1 if I was at a yard sale or something like that. And I sell those for $3. Graphic novels are always free. So
all right, this one in particular on Amazon usually sells for between like $50 to $70. So there'd be like a great arbitrage opportunity, right? And
my graphics are my graphics and manga. If you ever want to come into my show, if you have any knowledge of graphic novels and manga, you're $3 for graphics, $2 for manga.
So there's some arbitrage opportunity because you guys just saw a book that could sell for 50 to 70. There you go.
Yeah.
$3. All right, this book here, Jennifer Chan is Not Alone. Just a random book that I found.
It looks like a cute little like young adult or maybe like a tween aged reader. And yeah, if I read the synopsis, it would probably pick up. Yeah.
Okay.
And that would be maybe a $4 book.
$4 book. Okay.
Whatever.
Next book, Occupational Safety, Health, and Wellness, 4th edition.
That's a pass all day long.
Whoa.
But
Okay. This is
I I'll give you a caveat. Reminder, I do sell on eBay and I do sell other places that I don't talk about, but I do have some places where I would maybe take a little scanny scan to that barcode and just see what it's looking like. But nope, that would be a pass almost all day for whatnot.
okay. That book's like $100 book, $100
I,
textbook, right? No, I mean, the point of me doing this is not to say I got you. The point of me doing this is to show people that a lot of books that you would show me in the back, I'd be like, absolutely pass. I would never look at that. I would never think to sell it. And here you are telling me the books that I sell, you never look at. It's just there's so much opportunity out there. Okay,
yeah.
here we go. The Bamboo Sword. This is actually not a graphic novel. It's just a normal, I guess you consider a chapter book, but
Mhm.
the
I would
Bamboo
pass
Sword.
on that. Not for a
Yes,
dollar.
not for a dollar. Okay, so this
I don't
book,
know if I'd pick that up even for 50 cents, which is what
really,
hardbacks normally.
this book on
Yeah.
Amazon sells for like between $40 and $60.
Insane.
Crazy, right? Okay. What about this book here? We're talking seasonal stuff. Walk This World at Christmas Time. This is like
Yeah.
a pop-up book. It's
Yeah.
got the
I
little,
can already tell by the cover that those color patterns, that's a great thing for people to keep an eye out for. That very like neutral, aesthetically pleasing, pastel-y, just or pastel or vibrant. People love those types of storybooks.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
And
which
pop
one?
up.
Go for it. Pop-up. No, none of the pop-ups are used. Brand new, essentially. What would
Yeah.
this go for?
I would start that book around Christmas time, at least 6 or 7. I could
Okay.
see it going on an auction for close to between 10 to 15. I could see
15.
someone paying for that, but still probably a steal.
Grumpy Monkey, Valentine Gross
Yes,
Out.
of course. Adorable modern kids fiction, cute storyline, good illustrations, solid. And it's a series. So,
Okay, so what are
and
we
that's
thinking
a
on a book like
$3
this?
book,
$3 book?
$3, $4. Yeah.
That's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a book that we have for my son because my wife is also in the Bookstagram world and she gets a bunch of books. And most of them I couldn't even monetize on Amazon because like that book, for example, might sell for $8 or $9 on Amazon, and after fees, you'd be left with like $1. It's not even worth
Yeah.
it for me, at least, right? All
Yeah.
right. What about this one? The Adventures of Lily Huckleberry Collection Books 1 through 3.
Yeah.
Probably no brainer.
1,000%. Yeah.
What would something like
And
that
if
go
it's a
for?
3-book set, hardcover in good, clean condition, I don't know the content of it, but I would say I'd probably start it at like 9 or 10, probably about 10 for the set. I mean, it's so cute. Maybe even 12.
Okay, 12. Okay, 10 or 12 or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed that game, everyone.
I love
Amanda
games.
just passed on a lot of amazing books, but then also decided to pick up books I would say never buy. But again,
Yeah.
the point of showing you this to everyone is that you can monetize books in so many ways and the margins can still be pretty incredible. So now,
Yeah.
one of the books we looked at was this Christmas book. I'm interested in how often are you thinking about seasonal items, seasonal books when you are going out of the bins? Are you thinking, oh, this Easter book, I'm going to hold on to it. This Christmas book, I'm going to hold on to it, etc.
I operate on usually about 3 to 4 months out as a heavier pickup. And then anything outside of that, like if the holidays just passed, I am pretty much passing on that book unless it is just the most adorable book and I can't not pick it up because if I know it's a guarantee sale, I'll pick it up right after the holiday. If not,
Okay.
like I'm not picking up Easter books right now. I probably won't pick up
Yeah.
Easter books until like December.
Okay.
But I'm picking up holiday books, and then I do like a Christmas in July show. So I already did that, and I did 'cause I have limited space, so I have a whole shelf of Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, and did a huge show, and it was great. And in the off season, my prices are cheaper, and it's a great time to get them. And I told everyone, I said, this is the last time that these prices are going to be this way. But in the next time we start showing these books, they're going to be Christmas pricing because Christmas is a very monetizable holiday.
You got to do us all a favor, Amanda. When you have your next, this would be a year from now, when you have your next Christmas in July WhatNot show, please contact me so I can show all of the people on my YouTube channel this because I'm not sure how familiar you are with my YouTube channel, but my business partner, Victor Gallegos, and he's very popular for, buying Christmas books and, seasonal books in the off season when nobody wants them on Amazon for $3, $4, $5 plus shipping, and then selling them for $30, $40 when the season actually pops. So let us know because we might just raid you and bring a whole bunch of
Yeah.
people that are going to buy all your books because we know that, hey, the book you're selling to us for $3, we're going to sell for $35.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'll definitely let you know because it is that. And that's It's a smaller market here, but there's an off season and there's a season, and we do price accordingly. And I'm not going to sell a majority of my Christmas books, but it's hilarious how full my shelf is back here of holiday books. And in just when school goes back in September, when there is full blown skeletons and pumpkins and goblins and ghouls every single place you turn, and your kid is begging you to go get their Halloween costume, I will not have any Halloween books at all. I will have no Halloween books, like zero. And then
Yeah.
as soon as Halloween's over, all of my Thanksgiving and most of my Christmas are sold out. By December, I do not have a Christmas book in stock. I don't have a holiday section in Christmas. So there's a market here. It's just like anywhere else where it does really sell when that time comes up. So.
Awesome. Now, what's interesting is you do bundling partly due to the fact of the fee structure. You can save some money there. But what was really interesting to me is that when you bundle books, it didn't seem like there was a rhyme or reason. And you explain that's because if you are saying these are only cookbooks, you're singling out every other person who doesn't want a cookbook. Can you explain your process of saying one cookbook here is going with two children's books, which is going with two chapter books? What's the thought process? Is it completely arbitrary for what the bundle looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it's just whatever people want. So I have regulars and I can show a bunch of books that I know they already own because they've already purchased them from me, or they're not their kids' age range anymore. And so sometimes it's just, a matter of who needs what book and who wants what. I have very specific buyers for specific categories. And like I have people who are collecting a certain author and I know they already have these books, but the minute that book comes up that they don't have yet, they're ready to bid for it and they're gonna want it. And then they also saw, a new storybook that their kid is obsessed with, recently loves, and they're like, oh my gosh, they've never had any interest in Peppa Pig before, but now I need all of your Peppa Pig. And it's like, okay, I've had these Peppa Pig for a year, and well, now their kid's interested in it. And or my kid just started reading chapter books. And so we're not really buying picture books anymore. They want to start reading chapter books. So now they start buying chapter books. And so, yeah, it just depends on you're meeting the buyer where they're at. Just like we sell stuff on eBay all the time. And you're like, who would buy that? And it's like,
Yeah.
who needs that? Who needs that? Whatever it is, fill in the blank. Somebody needed it. So just whatever the people need, you give it to them.
Any business has stale inventory. Even in my Amazon business, there are just some books that don't sell. I'm assuming it's no different with you. So for the stuff that doesn't move, what we would call your duds, what is your sort of outlet for that? And like approximately what percent, if you just had to take a guess, what percentage of your books that you do buy end up not actually making it to any end user?
Yeah. So it's a very small percentage. There are two categories. The first one is unseen damage when I purchased it that I just missed. An excess rip, a scribble on a page, something that just was too much, an inscription that is just going to totally tank the value of the book and it's not worth even showing anyone. And that's probably 5 books out of 100. I mean, it's a
Okay.
small amount. It's
Incredible.
random. And then a lot of times what I do on my show, because I don't then want to have to put it in a pile to discard it, because I have a giant pile of books over here that meet that criteria. They're not going to sell. I'll just sometimes, if it's like a lighter book, not a heavy book, or it's something that's really desirable and it's like everyone's like, oh, that's such a bummer that Karen wrote her name all over the front page or whatever it is, I'll just say, hey, I'll give this to you as a freebie if you still want it. You're just paying for the
Okay.
little bit of weight. So I'll give it to them
Uh,
because they're like, yeah, we'll still read it, but I'm not going to like
yeah.
pay you for that book.
Right. Makes
So
sense.
now I'm just giving some. So that's a big thing I do with damage. And then as far as the second one, which is that it just didn't sell, nobody wanted it, it's sitting on the shelf. I have a very small, I don't even think maybe you can see it. That right there,
Huh?
that like shelf right there, that back there, that's my discard. And it's just those top, I can't get it, but those 3. This is all
Okay.
eBay stuff. So it's
Okay.
just
Gotcha.
those 3. So out of
Wow.
all of these bookshelves, just those little 3 with like maybe 20 or 30 books on it. And that is my learning curve. That's when it goes to that shelf. I remember,
Incredible.
do not pick that author up. Do not pick that series up. Don't pick that book up. And I do work with a local nonprofit and they supply books to schools all in my area. But
Awesome.
there's still books that can be read, whether
Okay.
they're adult or kids. And I'll just donate to them, usually like once every 2 months, like a huge donation. And they just gladly take them and go put them into teachers' classrooms and places that they will
Awesome.
still be enjoyed, nonprofits in the area, shelters and things like that. And then sometimes every once in a blue moon, like the really damaged stuff, it meets Mr. Dumpster. I don't
Uh,
know of a local recycling area around me, and that's maybe something I should look into. But it's such a small I mean, we're talking about like 20 books every 2 or 3 months that I'm just like tossing in the dumpster because I just can't. I do upcycle a lot of books myself. If it's a picture book, I will actually upcycle them. I will take them home and I craft. And so I will find like aesthetically pleasing scenes that would make really good bookmarks. And I cut them out and I laminate them. And I actually make upcycled bookmarks. So you can have, like a Magic School Bus upcycled bookmark with Miss Frizzle on it, or, whatever it might be. But the chapter books, those are a little harder to do anything with. So
I'm not sure if you monetize that, but I recently interviewed Katie Reeds, who I'm sure you may or may not know who Katie Reeds is,
yeah,
but she also
love
sells,
Katie.
yeah, she sells a sort of bookmarks on Etsy. Are you monetizing those as well, or are you just throwing those in with orders?
Monetizing them, yeah. So I usually, it just depends on what it is. So something that's a big one is Where's Waldo? So having a Where's
Oh,
Waldo bookmark. So I will literally take the time to go Google the book and find out where Waldo is on all the pages. If I'm feeling really kid friendly, I will actually just find Waldo myself. But most of the time I just Google it and find out where Waldo is. And then I take that bookmark and make it a bookmark. And so something like that, it's just really unique and fun. And you're not really going to find out in the wild. I'll probably sell for closer to $4. And then another one, that might be more run of the mill, that's nothing super crazy, but still cool, maybe $2 or $3. Sometimes I do little bundles of them. So I'll put like six upcycled bookmarks for like $10,
this
$12.
is all WhatNot,
So
right?
yes,
All WhatNot. These are all on WhatNot as well. Correct.
all on WhatNot, no
All on
Etsy
WhatNot.
selling or
Okay.
anything like that. Yeah.
Right. Now, part of what's made me successful as an Amazon bookseller is that I have a replens list. By replens list, I mean whenever I sell a book, I don't forget about it. Because if I was able to buy it on Amazon for 15 and sell for 50, then why couldn't I just do it again and again and again? Right. Of course, I'm looking for books that generally sit at a high price for most of the year, but for whatever reason can get quite low and I can pick them up. But part of my success is, for example, some of the books that I showed you, I've sold those books multiple times before. And so is there a way that you're tracking any of your replens, or is it really not necessary? It's kind of like you just know what sort of genre works and okay, yeah, I remember selling this particular book and it's going to do well again, but do you actually track any of your replens at all?
I don't. It's kind of one of the downsides. I wish there was some sort of like software or something that people who do what I do could use, like where we could and I could make my own spreadsheet, but I have a very good memory. So
Okay.
at least right now, maybe when I'm older, that'll be something I do. But it is
Right.
one thing that I do get a little jealous of people, like even just your, like having a trigger system and having more lengthy data reflected on this product. We don't have anything like that. So it really is just it's either the genre or the author that just catches your eye immediately. And you're like,
Right.
this is an always a 100% seller all the time. It's, it doesn't have a sell through rate, but it does based on your past experience. Does it
Right.
sell or does it not? So no, unfortunately, that would be lovely. I would love
Yeah.
something like that. It really is just a memory game. And if you just aren't the best and you just don't remember stuff like that, just Excel. Just get a little
Yeah.
Excel spreadsheet and just type the name of the book and then have a column for how many times you've sold it and what your average sales price was on it. And then that way you can just have that with you when you're outsourcing. And if you don't remember or have a never pick up again list for those of you that are
Yeah.
like, I didn't know that this person doesn't sell or this book doesn't sell. But
Yeah. What's incredible is
someone
that
create that software for us on
I
WhatNot
know. I
for
was like,
us WhatNot
like
sellers.
Victor Gangos and maybe
I
there's
know.
something
I
there
will
with WhatNot.
promote it. I will use it. I will do all of the things because for
Yeah.
me, it is a little easier, but I think it's a huge barrier to entry. And you asked the question earlier, and I think people, especially in this audience, will really feel that way where it's like, how do I know? It sounds
Yeah.
like a lot of trial and error. And why would I do that when I have a software that tells me yes or
Right.
no? And, but yeah, that's just the
Like,
nature of the business.
incredibly intriguing and interesting to potentially go that route. We are getting towards the end of the interview. I still have a couple more questions. What's like one or two things that you think most other whatnot sellers, or I should say, what's one or two things that you do that most other whatnot sellers don't do that sets you apart that actually gives you a competitive advantage? Like, you know, you don't have to spill the sauce if you want to, but what are a couple things you think you do that others don't that really makes a difference?
That's a tough question. I think there's a lot of things I do that I see a lot of people not do. The ones that I would say I think are the most important, I think the thing that's the most important that I think that I do that I don't necessarily see a lot of other sellers do, that doesn't mean other people don't do it, but I don't see it as often, is just really taking time to inform your audience as to what's going on at every
Right.
stage of your show. So when you're
Okay.
live, you have so many ways to communicate with your audience. You can use your voice. You can use text on the screen by pinning up a message at the bottom that says, "Hey, everyone, welcome in. This is what we're doing right now," so that when they pop in, they can just read that. Or you have a show notes option where you can put different notes like, "Tonight, all of my books are just $1," or whatever it is that you want to do. So you can inform people what's going on. And then all they can do is text. So all they can do is ask in a limited character form a question or whatever it might be. So I don't know about you, but you don't really use the app. But if you've ever used the app or you've ever used something similar and you pop into someone's show and you're kind of lost in the sauce and there's no real details and they're not really talking, but they're talking to everybody and you just want to ask, how does this work? What's going
Right.
on, right?
Right.
I want to limit that question as much as possible because I just want anyone and everyone to have an opportunity to know what's going on. So, this is a quick two-parter. The first one is utilizing something at the bottom. You can pin it up. There's information in my last YouTube video if you want to go watch it. It's listed in there. You can pin something up at the bottom and it'll explain to them what you're doing. So, I have a couple different ones. And for example, a big one I use is I'm cashing a few people out. We'll be back shortly. Feel free to browse the auction tab where all of my shelves are listed.
Mm,
Make any requests at any time. So now what I'm doing is focused on the 6 or 10 or 12 or 15 people who are ready to cash out after we just went through all of our new inventory. But somebody's popping in and they have no idea that we've been on for 3.5 hours. And I have
wow.
hundreds of bundles around me that I need to cash out. But now, without me having to tell everyone, they pop in, they see that, and I'm in the background, doing my own thing. I'm not even looking at the screen. And then the other thing I'll do when I'm doing something like that, or in general, if I see a lot of faces popping in, or new people who I've just never seen before, it's just kind of automatic. You get that airline attendant mode, which is, I'm doing something. I'm like, "Hey, everyone, thanks for popping in. If you're just joining us, welcome. Feel free to check out the auction tab and the buy it now. I'm just cashing a few people out right now. So
Cool, cool.
hang with us. We're going to still show plenty of books. We're not done. The show's not over." And I will tell people, like, we've been on for 3.5 hours. Like, I will let
Yeah.
people know, like, I did not just get on 10 minutes ago, and I'm not just a fresh spring chicken right now. I am like exhausted, and I need you to be patient with me as I'm being patient with you. And then you're going to have my full attention in just a minute. So
Awesome.
that is a big one. That I think is probably the best tip I can give people is talk
Right.
to your audience, talk to the people, and let people know what's going on. And then consistency. Don't
Yeah.
just do a show and then do a show randomly. Like stop wondering why you're not gaining traction on the app when you're not doing even just the bare minimum. The bare minimum isn't bringing good inventory and having a good personality. The bare minimum is having your show scheduled out, telling
Right.
people when they can find your shows, giving people an opportunity to build up a rapport with you and a relationship with you. It's a whole system. So
Awesome. Yeah.
consistency is up there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of the time that you spent with us. Essentially been talking for an hour, and there's just tons of value to be added here. I wanted to let everyone know again that Amanda Resell Maven is going to be at the Books and Beyond Resellers Conference this September 13th to 15th in Las Vegas, Nevada. There's going to be 20 other amazing speakers as well. And if you found this valuable, I mean, imagine what she's going to talk about. You can actually meet her in person. And of course, getting your questions answered much easier if like Amanda could see you face to face. I'm incredibly excited and selfishly excited to meet you in person, just to hang out. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And last thing that I want to say is make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Resell Maven. We'll link it down below. Also, make sure if you want to become a WhatNot seller or if you want to become a WhatNot buyer or customer, use our link below. I believe you get $15 in credit. Give her a small kickback. You could say thank you for providing all this free and valuable content to us here today. All I can say is that this was an incredible experience, and I hope you had fun.
Yeah, it was a blast. It's very interesting to see how our different markets are the same and different at the same time. And just a reminder that there's a million books out there and there's a potential for a business for anyone. And you can do it a bunch of different ways. Just figure out what works for you because
Yep.
the options are out there for sure.
Yep. And we were using hyperbole saying there's a million books out there, but there's actually hundreds of millions of books out there.
Yeah.
So there's tons of opportunity.
Yeah.
Everyone, really hope you enjoyed today's podcast interview. If you have any recommendations or requests for new people, then let us know down below in the comment sections. But that's all we have for you today, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.